Okay, all right. So I want to read one verse and stick to it most of my message, and that is Gospel of John, chapter 1, verse 14. And I just want to give you a simple definition of this verse, and overall, John as the author. So John, as some of you know, there are four Gospels in the New Testament, in the Bible: Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Matthew and Luke go into details, the story of Christmas. We know all the incredible pieces of Christmas, from shepherds to magi to Mary to Zachariah, Elizabeth to Joseph. I mean, so many stories, Simeon, Anna, you name it. We can go and pick and choose every person, Herod, and I mean, you name it. But what is so incredible about John? John is writing his gospel probably about 50 years after Jesus already ascended to heaven. Okay? He's writing his gospel, what we believe, close to 80 years from when it happened. John was the youngest disciple of Jesus. He was, some believe, related to Jesus, and he lived a long life. In fact, as some of you know, he's the only disciple of Jesus that died on his own death. In other words, he died because he was old. Okay? Everybody else was a martyr. And so John is writing, and you know, somewhere 80 AD, and his way of describing Christmas is different because he doesn't go into details, but he tells us the meaning of Christmas, which is incredibly profound. So here it is. I can keep moving this screen, not that I should. I mean, I probably shouldn't. Okay, I'll stay away from trouble. I just want to make sure everybody can see it. I'll read it for you, okay? Verse 14 summarizes the whole Christmas. Here we go. The word, watch the word with capital W, the word. Remember, John starts his gospel. In the beginning was the word, and again, capital W. Word, which means logos in Greek, which means purpose. Just for a second, think about it. Purpose. When you think of Jesus, think of purpose. In the beginning was God's purpose. It wasn't the world. God created the world for his purpose. It wasn't Adam and Eve. I'm going to give you another news. The world didn't start with you. The world started with God's purpose for you. God had a purpose for you, therefore you're breathing. In the beginning was God's purpose. And logos or logos, some pronounce word. In the beginning was the purpose, and the purpose was with God. John says in 1:1, and the purpose was God. Think about it. And now in verse 14, here's Christmas. And the purpose became flesh and made his dwelling among us. Most of you heard this translation. In some translation, the purpose pitched a tent among us. He set a tent, set up his dwelling. He built a house. He came close to us. His dwelling among us. We have seen his glory, the glory of the one and only Son who came from the Father, full of grace and truth. Before we go into the message, the purpose became one of us and make his dwelling among us. I cannot shout enough, strong enough, and loud enough a simple statement about God that has created you. Here's a statement. God always wanted to be with his people. God never meant to create people and separate himself. God made you and I so he can be with us. And remember, those of you that are theologically wondering, or as we've been tackling this statement for a year or so, those of you that think, oh, once I die, and God forbid if I die, but you know, if I die, I'm going to go to heaven. No, God created Adam and Eve on earth to represent him and to take care of the world around us. And he came and hang out with Adam and Eve. And from Genesis 1, 26, 27, all the way to Revelation 21 and 22, the very last chapters of the library. I call it library, the Bible, 66 books. God again comes down in New Jerusalem, the presence of God, and Jesus dwells with his people forever. But Christmas is almost at the center of this incredible story. Christmas, not the date, but the meaning. We're not celebrating the date. A couple of scholars in third centuries, they've decided, because it was believed that conception to birth is 9 months. And so they've decided that since Jesus was born on certain day, since Jesus was died on a certain day, and he was born on a certain day, he had to be conceived on a certain day. So that's how they came up with December 25th. Just kind of funny side note, okay? Just kind of keep it out there. If you're ever interested to Google it, research it, you can go ahead. But we're not celebrating the date. We're celebrating the meaning, the event. And so I just want to remind you, the heart of God was always about being with us. God had a purpose, and the name of the purpose was Jesus. And then he says, now is the time where the purpose wouldn't be somewhere up in heaven, unattainable, far away, unreachable by people, because we all went our own way. We all sinned and messed up and fell short of God's glory, and we missed the mark as what the meaning of sin is. So now suddenly, oh God, you made us, but we've lost our ways, and we're confused about ourselves, and we're hurting ourselves, and we're hurting one another, and we're hurting the world around us. God never gave up on us. He just comes and he says, all right. It's like little kids in the room that they didn't build. Imagine, we're going to talk a lot about kids today, just for fun, so everybody can relate to it. Imagine 5, 6, 7-year-old Play-Dohs. They brought sand into the room, into the house. There's a lot of paint going on. And they start painting the walls and all over, the mess everywhere. They start painting each other. I don't know, it happened to us. I can tell you stories. We have 4 kids. One of them, the product of my loins right here. Anyway, and so I'm just, he's already blushing. He's like, why did I come home from Hawaii? And so he studies there, not that he lives there. But anyway, and so imagine kids are all messing it up. And suddenly, adult comes into the room. And what does adult do? Instead of slapping everybody and punishing everybody, the adult just says, hey, can I join you for a game? Can I join you for a good time? That's exactly what God did for us. We messed up in every way possible. And God came in, set his house, built his house he's like, I'm one of you. Let's go. Let's go. Rather than punishing us for our sins and our mistakes, he says, let me just hang out with you guys. This is the heart of God. And he says, John says, we have seen his glory. That will be my last point, number 3. The glory of one and only Son, who came from the Father full of grace. Grace. Full of grace. Jesus showed up full of grace. You know, I've said it so many times. I'm going to repeat it one more time. I've lived for so long under not the law of Moses, but close to it. Religious rules, conservative ideas that were not conservative as far as scriptural truth, but conservative as far as like, look, our forefathers did it this way. Our fathers did this way. And you should do it as well. Why should I do it? Don't ask why, because I said so. Well, but it's not biblical. It doesn't matter because I said so. We sang songs. I was part of a community that was all about rules and regulations and very little about relationship. And what I've learned, as most of you know, rules without relationship lead to rebellion. We all know that. And so what happened with God, he showed up full of grace. Jesus showed up full of grace. Grace if you're taking notes, grace at Christmas is God entering our world while we were building one without Him. We didn't need Him. That's what we thought. We didn't want Him. That's what we expressed. We didn't want Him. Isn't it interesting that Jesus was born at night? How do we know that He was born at night? Because of the shepherds. The scripture says that night, shepherds were out on the field, and suddenly the angel showed up. It wasn't just that Jesus showed up in one of the darkest moments in history. And we talked about that history over and over. The political oppression, the abuse of Roman Empire, Jewish people being uncomfortable in their own skin. They knew of God. They didn't have Him. For over 400 years of silence. No prophetic words, no word from the Lord, no relationship with God. The temple is built, a beautiful temple, one of 7 wonders of the world, but it doesn't feel like ours. It was built on the money, that money that was stolen from nations and ethnic groups that the Roman Empire took it and abused everybody, and it was given to Herod, and Herod was abusing local people, and they built this incredible building. Here we go, Jews. You want a temple, you want God's presence, you have it. They didn't feel God there. They followed the rules, but they didn't feel God in the temple. They were uncomfortable. They knew of God. They didn't have Him. It was dark on every level, social, economic, political. I mean, every angle. We don't have time to go into all of it. And on top of all of it, it was a nighttime. It was dark. As if the nature had its own layer on top of all the issues people had. There's another layer to it. It was dark. Nobody's running around. Nobody's cheering up and excited for Jesus being born. It was dark. Grace isn't about our effort toward God. It's about God's proximity to us. Wow. Some of us think of Christianity as like, how can I please God? How can I impress God? How can I be in His good book? You realize that there is no good book. There's only one book. It's called Book of Life. And once you're in, you're His. You realize that. Once you're in, you're His. God walks with you. God has a relationship with you. But once you're in the Book of Life, your name is in, you're His. But it all started not because of us originating that idea of being with God, or us reaching, or our effort. But it all started with God saying, okay, I want to come very close to you. And I want to live with all of you. Just like throughout Israel's history, God does not abandon His people when they drift away. He comes near. He comes close. We talked about kids. Let's imagine another example. Imagine a child. Disobedient, maybe breaks something, whatever, a little child, and then goes and hides in his or her room, quiet, maybe ashamed, maybe distant. They don't come to parents and say, let me explain to you what happened. Let me apologize. They hope that the parents don't notice it. They hope that if they don't notice this, I don't know when, I don't know who. It wasn't me for sure. That's the answer. So they go and hide in the room. Here comes the parent. And this is how we imagine God as the parent that will go in and say, what happened? Talk to me. Let's go. Why did you do it? How did you do it? And here's the punishment. But God is not like that. He's like that wise parent that would walk into the room, maybe even in silence, and just sit at the end of the bed just sits with the child. Maybe even in the beginning with silence. No lecturing kid, no punishing kid, just his presence. And just in a few moments, that child feels like, wow, no punishment is coming. Wow. It's suddenly that breaking of something, or disobedient, or hurting somebody, or fighting with a sibling. All of that suddenly, slowly drifts away. And that's exactly what God did for all of us. He walked into our world, and suddenly all of our mess, every mistake we've made, every stumbling we have experienced, suddenly all of that is being pushed away. The mere presence of God, full of grace, a simple, sheer expression of His grace. And suddenly, what we've done and all of our shortcomings and everything that we didn't have and who we are not, all of that is all moving away. God showed up and decided to build His house with all of us. God does not wait in heaven for humanity to come explain itself. He sits down in our space. I don't know about you, but this makes me like, wow, Jesus, you are incredible. You are amazing. Grace is not God yelling from doorway. Rather, He's coming close first. He's coming close first. Friends, this is what it means, full of grace. Purpose of God. The person of God. Jesus, Son of God, came close and built His house among us. Secondly, He says, full of grace and truth. Can we go back to the verse just to make sure that we have it here? The Word became flesh and made His dwelling among us. We have seen His glory, the glory of the one and only Son who came from the Father. We don't have time, but someday we'll talk about the Son and the Father. What an incredible story. This isn't just about purpose of God, but it's about the person of God. The purpose is always an idea until it becomes a person. What is so amazing about God? That He isn't just about the ideas or the purpose or what we call a theology or what we call a way of life. What is so amazing about God is that He sent His Son, Jesus, to be with us. So that purpose is now personified. That purpose became a person. That is so amazing for me. He says, who came from the Father, full of grace and truth. Truth, we talked about it some couple of months ago, but I want to remind you that the truth in original language, in Greek, is actually taking back ideas from Old Testament. It's actually using the same word as in Old Testament is used. Are you ready for this? Over 1,087 times. That word. And guess what is as far as describing God? But that word for truth, Hebrew word emet, means faithfulness. It means reliability. It means loyalty. It means commitment. It means, very simple, promise keeping. Jesus is the climax of Israel's long, messy story where God remains faithful even when His people repeatedly are not. Israel failed. Humanity failed. Yet Christmas declares God does not cancel His promises. He fulfills them personally. Wow. Can you just for a moment, just stop as far as your thoughts? Just stop, pause for a moment, and think about it. That in all of our mistakes and all of our mess, God did not expect us to reach out to Him. He reached out to us. I know it's basic, but how profound is that? That in order to fix our relationship, He says, can I come to you? Can I hang out with you? Would you let me into your world? This is so amazing about God. And if you appreciate the description of Christmas, which is the description of the very heart of God, it will shape your mind forever. It will change your life forever. Why? Because you'll have a different perception of God. You will live your life not out of, I have to, I should, I owe it to God. But you will live your life as like, I got to do this. I am privileged to do it. I'm enabled by the Spirit of God to do this. This is the way to live a life full of grace and truth, because this is all about my God. Jesus born on Christmas is God saying, I meant what I promised to Eve, to Abraham, to David, to 600 years of prophecies. From Samuel all the way down to Malachi. 600 years of promises. And what happened on Christmas? This is exactly what God is making. He says, I meant it. I meant what I promised. Christmas is not God responding to our faithfulness. It is God acting despite our unfaithfulness. Full of grace and faithfulness. Grace and faithfulness. Grace and unwavering commitment to humanity. N.T. Wright says it very simple. He says, God's faithfulness is not reactive. It is relentless. So good. Continual. Over and over and over. See, we live our life where we say, if you are faithful, I will be faithful. And if you are unfaithful, drop dead gorgeous. I'm out. I'm out. Bye. Adios. But God is relentless in His faithfulness. God does not give up on you and me. How many marriages will be transformed forever if we had this mindset? How many kids would have fathers present in their life if that was a mindset? How different would our world be if that was a mindset? The faithfulness, relentless faithfulness of God, forever faithful God. And obviously, let's go back to the verse again. Watch how it starts. The last point I want to make about the glorious God. The Word became flesh and made His dwelling among us. We have seen His glory. The glory of the one and only Son. We have seen His glory. Now, I'm going to ask you a simple question. What do you think glory of God look like at Christmas, the first Christmas? What does the glory look like? What is this all about? See, we think of glory as like this bright light shining so profoundly, so vividly. Wow, everybody can see, and nobody can replicate it. I mean, this only God. But the reality is This right here is the most profound statement in the whole Christmas story. Why? Because in the Old Testament, church, God's glory was dangerous actually. Think about Moses could only see his back. The scripture says in Exodus chapter 33 and 34 that Moses can only see the back of God walking through. He's in a cleft of a rock. God is passing by and he sees the back of him and more about expression of his grace as God promised him. That was it. Think about Israelites. They couldn't see even Moses. They couldn't look at him because Moses was in the presence of God. There was glory of God upon him. Think about the temple. What happened? God says, build a temple, and my glory will be in the Holy of Holies, which once a year a high priest will encounter that room, that place. So of all nation, one person, once a year, one time in 365 days, walks into that room where the presence of God, the glory of God dwells. One person, once a year, out of a whole nation. 2.5 million that left Egypt. Who knows how big of a nation they become. But think about it, temple, the very symbol of God's glory. It was all separation. Why? Because people didn't know how to handle glory. They didn't value the presence of God. And obviously in the temple, curtains shield people from God's glory. But in Jesus, God does something unthinkable. He lets ordinary people look at his glory and live. Look at God's glory, and live. Not just live, but live with abundance. Jesus is the true temple. The place where God's presence now dwells openly. Christmas is God taking that glory that once terrified people. Because God was almighty, powerful. He speaks and things happen. He speaks and everything materializes. Away from sin, perfect, secluded, separated for his own purpose. That is your creator. And people didn't know how to do it. People died in his presence because they were living in sin. But at Christmas, he took his glory and he says, come on, everybody, come on in. He says, I'm going to take my glory, I'm going to wrap it in a human face. Wow. Suddenly, we're not scared no more. Suddenly, we're not worried that, wow, I am so imperfect with so many issues. And there is this perfect God that I can't relate to. No, now we see his face, but his face was smiling. His countenance was all goodness. It was all kindness. It was all generosity. It was all encouraging, supporting, inspiring people. It was all selfless. It was all being generous. Oh, that's the Jesus that you and I serve. So amazing. God does not lower his glory at Christmas. He makes it accessible. He didn't say, well, since in the Old Testament you couldn't handle it, I'm going to lower the quality of it. I'm going to make it very little, like you're going to get a part of it. I'll diminish it to a little part, and that's it. You have it, humanity. You have it, people. Nope. He says, let me make it accessible to you. Come, touch it. Come be around that. Come experience it. The shepherds did not see less of God's glory. They saw grace close enough to touch him. Think about it. Think about it. I want to finish with a personal story. Because genuinely, I see myself in Christmas story. I see myself in a story of shepherds. I was born and raised in Carpathian Mountains. I said it so many times, but I'll repeat it again. literally every single evening, particularly from somewhere October through end of April, a good 6 months of a year, long, dark nights. But I was surrounded with grandpas and grandmas, the whole street, a lot of older people, veterans, World War II, most men, probably every man that I've talked to in my childhood, they went through war. A lot of pain, hurting. Someone that walked like my grandfather 5,000 kilometers in 5 years. Wounded, broken-hearted, broken bodies, surviving under communism. The stories through the night, every night from about 4 p.m. when it's dark, all the way to about 10 p.m. You hear the stories. I had no kids to play with. I had no toys to play with. Yes, I was read the Bible. My grandparents read me the scripture, hiding from communists and atheists. But I was born and raised in that community. I remember playing by myself in a huge, big backyard. And there's no one else. I was born in an area where we had our own language that was so obscure. It had an alphabet, it has its own words, but nobody was officially speaking. Then in school you learn Ukrainian, and then you learn Russian as well. But in that obscure environment, I remember studying in school, going to seminary. I was 15 and a half, I was in seminary, admitted to seminary. I wanted to be the youngest student in seminary ever in Europe. And then after seminary, I got my bachelor's degree by the age of 19, 18 and a half, planted the church, got a bachelor's degree, and I remember planting a second church, second year, young guy. And one day, I got a phone call. And again, let me remind you, a little boy from Carpathian Mountains living among older people, veterans, World War II, no friends to play with, following Jesus, abused in school for our faith, mocked by everybody, and so on and so on. But one day, at the age of 20, I get a phone call. And I hear somebody on the other line says, John, we believe that you should let other leaders that you have raised so far, let them lead the church, because the University of Manchester, its theological department with Regent College, would like to offer you a full ride scholarship to continue study theology. I remember it was really late at night, probably about 11:30 at night, in the area called Chernihiv, in somewhat eastern Ukraine. And I remember I thought about it. I was like, wow, who would have thought? I would have never dreamt, coming from where I came from, that I would master third language, yet alone. Now I have to study English. And I'm going to move to the United Kingdom. And my friends, that story reminds me of what the glory of God is all about. I see myself as a shepherd who just minded their own business. But God, in His glory, didn't say, let me paint the sky in this bright color and everybody can see it, but the rich, but the powerful, but the wise, but the educated, they'll explain it to you what it means. They'll let you know what the radiant glory is all about. No, the glory of God showed up in a way that shepherds were the first one. I can't wrap my head around this. Church, just think about it. Infinite God that created every human being and the world that is so beautiful, and we keep messing it up. Infinite God that said, I'm going to step into your life despite your mess. I'm going to come and rescue all of you. But in all that rescue experience, the incredible journey, all the prophecies, suddenly when He shows up, it is not to people that could actually interpret his appearance, that could actually interpret that incarnation, that no one can ever put it together. No one can ever explain. It wasn't even the medics, the scientists. They were the shepherds. And he says, yep, living in the outskirts, pushed away by society. Come and see the purpose of God in person, that decided to build a house, pitch his tent among us. Come and see his glory. And we think, last thought, we think that the glory of God was angels singing. And shepherds were like, oh, isn't it amazing? Heartwarming. Wow. No, the glory of God, the real glory was not about angels singing. It's about God laying in a manger, wrapped in cloth, laid somewhere on top of lots of hay, surrounded by animals. Wow. Do you want to understand God's glory? I am all for education, obviously. I am all for science, obviously. I am all for arts, obviously. But I want to remind you that the glory of God is not about studying for a long time so we can explain it. But the glory of God is all about being accessible by everyone. Anybody in jail? Anybody in prison? Anybody dying? No, I want to use strong word, but I'm tempted to use the word heck right now. I wanted to say heck. Read 1st and 2nd Peter. Jesus showed up in hell to preach. That's the glory. I have to. Please forgive me. Can we go to 1 Peter chapter 1, verse 10 through 12? Just watch this, church. Watch this. Watch this. I can't do this without, my goodness, done with notes. Okay, here we go. 1 Peter 1, 10 to 12. Watch this. Concerning this salvation, Peter says, the prophets who spoke of the grace that was to come to you, of the grace that was to come. Prophets were speaking. They couldn't experience. It was far away from them. They spoke. They foretold the grace that was to come to you. Search intently and with greatest care, trying to find out the time and circumstances to which the Spirit of Christ in them was pointing when He predicted the suffering of the Messiah and the glories that would follow. Now let's continue reading. It was revealed to them, the prophets, that they were not serving themselves. Like we talk about it, we can't touch it. We prophesy about it, it's not for us. We're going to produce it, the message, but we're not going to be participating in it. Serving themselves. But you, when they spoke of the things that have now been told you by those who have preached the gospel to you by the Holy Spirit sent from heaven, even angels long to look into these things. The Greek word for angels. Think just for a second. Think about it. Angels, they witness it, but they don't participate in it. But angels witness God's glory, and for them, this word, long to look, in some translation, intently look, that means stooping down on your knees and then lowering your body as low as your knees, looking in. So in the heavens, remember we talked about heavens a few Sundays ago, back in the building with Dr. Blaine Charette. Angels are stooping down, looking and saying, how is this going to be? How can God wrap Himself in a flesh? How is this majestic, beautiful, glorious God going to be one of human beings that mess up and make mistakes? How? So they are trying to look into these things. They just wonder. angels were so puzzled. How is it possible? But it is for your and my benefit. It is for your and mine story. And this morning, I want to encourage you, as we are surrounded by this many testimonies, not just the prophetic testimonies, the historical data, the scientific data, but the testimony of so many people around you. God has rescued so many of us, hopefully all of us. God is transforming our lives. We all come in different packages with our own narrative, but God is transforming our lives. And we are privileged to rub shoulders together, hear each other's stories, hear what God is doing in our lives. This morning on Christmas week, I want to remind you that God, the very purpose for your life, wrapped himself in a human flesh and decided to build a house next to you. Allows you to touch him. He is tangible, personable. He is present, so close, always so close. And all you have to do is just say, Lord, I want to be a part of it. I want you to stand to your feet right now.